Welcome to EWA's FIN-LYT podcast. EWA is a fee-only RIA based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We hope all listeners of this podcast will benefit as we deep dive into complex financial topics that we will make simplified for you. And we hope that this really serves as a catalyst so that you can make the best financial planning decisions for your family and also save time. Welcome, everyone, to this week's FIN-LYT by EWA podcast, joined here by Jamison Smith. And we thought it would be really helpful just to go through like a real live case analysis, just high income earner in their 40s, what concerns are typically brought up to the table, and then what does a financial plan actually look like? What's the responsibilities on us? What's the responsibility of the client? What's the roadmap of the implementation, et cetera? So James and I have prepared just a sample case analysis based upon real life data. Obviously, no specific names or anything will be shared, but we thought it'd be really helpful to walk through. So let's first set the stage. So Jamison, in this sample case analysis, give us a high level background. What are incomes? What are the circumstances, et cetera?
So we'll just say early 40s, early mid 40s, husband, wife, one kid. Kid's say 2 years old, year old, doesn't matter. Income, they have some W-2 income, some 1099 income, say $700,000 of household income.
How much is W-2 and how much is 1099?
This example say 600 is W-2, 100,000 is 1099.
Which is really common with like medical professionals. If you're like a doctor, typically your W-2 will be your main, and then maybe you do some like legal work, some like medical malpractice, like witness expertise stuff. Or if you're like in sales, sometimes you have a W-2 and you have some consulting gigs, et cetera. So that's very key because that puts the opportunities from a financial planning standpoint like 10x, which I know you'll get into, but just want to break that down.
So a little bit of 1099 income, and we'll say they've done some savings, so we'll just set the scene here. So it's $350 in an old IRA from an old employer, $200,000 in one 401k that they're funding, $150 in another 401k they're funding. We'll say $200,000 in just a taxable investment account they've been saving into. No 529 plans for the kids, no insurance, no estate planning. They've basically just started to save some money as they've worked at multiple jobs. Now they're really starting to make a lot of money. And a lot of times in these situations, the concerns, obviously there's a lot of financial stuff and nerdy stuff we'll get into, but a lot of it's more of like psychological, soft, like the softer things. It's not a tangible like black or white financial decision. So a lot of these people, they've, again, started to make money, and they kind of are in a weird area if you're in your 40s. I don't know, I'm not my 40s, but this is just based on the context of people I've talked to. You kind of look back and you're like, well, I don't really know if I've saved enough money. Like I probably have some financial regrets. Maybe I've taken on some debt when I was younger. I've spent more than I should have. I've saved some money. I have no clue if I'm on track or off track. But people at that age range, they kind of see retirement. They're much closer to retirement than someone in their 20s and 30s. So you're kind of like, well, I can kind of see the finish line, and I have zero clue if I'm on track, off track, if I've oversaved, undersaved. So that's where a lot of the conversation is had. Again, we can do a bunch of nerdy financial stuff, but it's more of like, hey, how do we calibrate this to lifestyle and make sure that it's like set up with your goals to make sure that we're right-sizing all this. But yeah. General overview, anything to add? Yeah,
no, that's great. So both spouses are working in this example. Mm-hmm. Let's just set the stage even further. So what are the incomes of the husband and wife?
We'll say, so let's say wife is about $200,000 W-2. Husband is, what's the difference there? $400 W-2, $100,000 599.
Okay, so the wife is 100%
W-2,
and then the husband has a split, 400.
Yeah.
W-2 and 100. And this is a real life case analysis. Obviously, it could be vice versa. Okay. So first meeting, what are the goals? What gets uncovered?
So again, obviously the balance sheet, but then basically
stresses, goals, etc.
So, we're going to go through all goals, short term, next 5 years, midterm. In their case, they're in their 40s, midterms, probably next 10 to 15 years. Long term is going to be any type of financial independence goal. So, beyond 60, 65, whatever that looks like. So just looking short term, a lot of times this is maybe they want to get into their forever home, or they're in their forever home. They've just gotten into their forever home. So they have their mortgage. They want to know, should I pay down debt quicker? Do I save? I don't want to carry a 30-year mortgage till I'm 70. What do we do? Maybe there's house renovations on the table. Most of the time, I would say a lot of the bigger purchases are complete. There's still maybe one or two hanging out there, whether it's a vacation home or, again, that house they want to get into. But then short term, it's basically just get on track for everything, get everything in place for long-term savings. In this specific example, college was a big thing. But
do they want to fund, so they have one kid, do they want to fund like 100% of undergrad?
Yeah, so what
post-grad, or how did that conversation go?
Yeah, so what I like to do is ask how the client paid for college, because usually that uncovers a lot of the beliefs and philosophies they have. So in this example, took on loans, and then the husband paid off both for the wife's loans and his loans. And so his philosophy was he wants to have half of the expected college cost ready to go, but he wants the kid to have skin in the game. So wants to be able to pay for it if he decides to, but wants no-brainer half there, and then make sure the kid has some skin in the game for undergrad.
Nice. Okay. So have the flexibility to pay if they want, but skin in the game is key. Okay. Any other short-term goals other than the forever home?
They're in their forever home, so the renovations were done. They had, that was literally...
Do you find that they had any stress with like money temperature, like they were unsure of what they were doing? Were they spending too much, saving too much, et cetera?
He thought that they were spending too much, but basically they're already maxing out both 401ks plus saving like $5,000 a month. So if you think about, just break down, 30s coming in after taxes.
So 700 gross after 401ks, after taxes, they're left with 30 a month.
Yeah, roughly. So they're already saving 46 into the 401ks, plus 5 a month going into tax account. So they're actually doing a pretty good job of saving.
Okay, so they're saving about 100. So that's about a 15% of their gross, and we like them to be at 25. So another 70 a year if possible. But I'm just guessing some of that 1099s probably comes in at sporadic moments, so maybe some of that's getting captured as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but go back to his biggest stress. His biggest stress was like I feel like they're overextending themselves and they're spending too much, saving too little.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which I would agree with him. I think that's they're doing better than the average, but they should be saving more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not for even financial planning, but just for the sake of, if you're used to that money temperature of, essentially spending 25 a month, even if your house is paid off. I mean, you're when you retire, you're going to be needing a lot of that money still to live off of, if not a little bit more, because you get all the free time depending on their like travel goals, et cetera. So one of the best financial planning metrics is just to control that money temperature. That's the greatest. That discipline aspect is the greatest aspect of success in the future. Yeah. I think his gut was pretty right on, of like, we need to calibrate that a little bit. That's great. What else did you hear from the wife and the husband? Are there any disagreements about money or did you just meet with the one?
The first meeting was just the husband. Next meeting will be both.
Will be both.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. And so you mentioned no estate plan, no insurances. Was that a stress for them, or did he think that was even a concern?
No, he brought it up to me. He's like, I know I should be doing this. I just don't even have a clue like what's appropriate, where to start. So
okay. What were some of his other concerns? Was he concerned about like how his investments, was he invested correctly, or? No,
actually didn't even bring that up. But he has an advisor at a big wirehouse. He's just like, I feel like they're good, but not like, they're just like doing investment management. Yeah. They're not providing any like advice, good service. Big concern for him. So he's in a very competitive sales role. And so he said like, when it's like eat what you kill, like it can be very stressful because at any moment, like, a deal could not come through, it couldn't hit. Yeah. And then also is transitioning to potentially taking the role he has with the sales company, or that company, the sales role, and turning it all to like 1099, like his own business, and then hiring people under him. So that's been a stressor. It's just like, how does he navigate, and wants to know like, if I flip the 1099, what income do I need to, obviously now taxes aren't taken out like a W-2, but he was like, I know I can do some tax savings from retirement accounts, just writing things off. So what's like the break-even point of income?
So he's looking for a decision affirmation on a big career move, essentially, like putting all the chips on himself.
It's could have higher upside, but obviously much more risk.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's, I think, one of the biggest values a financial advisor can provide is walking through. Maybe clients have 5 or 6 like huge decisions, like S-curve moments, we like to call them, during their life. So it sounds like he's right in the middle of one, and you'd be able to help them through that will be a game changer.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, before we get into like dissecting, like what could he be doing, what are the recommendations, et cetera, anything else come in the conversation?
No, they basically just bought the forever home, did some house renovations, they're through that, and then just had the kid. So it's like basically a couple big transitions. So things have been just like variable, and then just wanting like stability as they're now through kind of the 2 big transitions.
Yeah. So, do you think, so what about fees? Did you guys talk about fees and what our fee would be? And like, so walk through, he could hire like an hourly advisor. He could hire someone to just develop a plan, which obviously I have a strong opinion on, people live, breathe, and think about finances. So, having a one-time plan that probably doesn't get followed through on is, for someone like this with very little time and high stress, high income, is probably not the way to go. But talk to us about, how did that conversation go from a fee perspective? Why do you think he's a good candidate specifically for our model?
So he's looking for holistic advice. So tax advice, estate planning, risk management, and like you said, decision affirmation, not just like investment management. Like the advisor is now is just literally managing an investment account. Like that is it. So he wants full service, like CFO type service, which is what we provide. And so I just explained, hey, you could go to an hourly fee with an advisor. They're not going to help you implement it. You're going to leave the meeting with a list of like 20 things to do. And his big thing was, he's like, I know I could learn this. Like, I'm sure I could do the research and learn it. I don't have time, and I don't want to, nor could I I wouldn't know if I'm making the right decision.
Yeah.
And he was like, I just want to be able to delegate this and have somebody that I trust and knows that they know what they're doing. And so I said, our fee structure is assets under management based. Explained what it would be. His case, about around $1 million would be approximately 1%. Yeah. And I said, and that encompasses all of our services. So obviously we're doing the investment management, but we'll give advice on estate planning, insurance, taxes, retirement, college savings, budget, cash flow, all of these financial decisions. We never give you an invoice. You never pay us for our hourly for our time. It's just wrapped into that AUM fee. We can meet as little or as much as you are comfortable with, but we're going to do as much work behind the scenes to take that off of your plate, but obviously report to you and let you know what's going on at all times.
Awesome. And how did he receive that?
He said it's exactly what
he's looking for.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. And if you look at if he were to replicate that through hourly fees and then paying a CPA and like quarterbacking and all that stuff, he'd probably pay 5x what the 1% is. So that's our business model, is quarterbacking and making the complex simple for really busy individuals with low time and lowering stress, increasing decision affirmation, lowering decision fatigue, and letting people live their best lives and making sure the money has one job description, supporting their life by design. That's it. So that's alignment there, which is great. So I think one of the conflicts that AUM Advisor has, though, is like the incentive. Like, we want as much under management. Obviously, we have a tiered down fee, so the more you have, the lower the percentages. But still, it's like the conflict of like the more you have. So one of the things we try to be really intentional is making sure that you're securing the future, but you're also living presently. And the stress test on that is you can always look back on your life without regret. And I think that's a really important thing to disclose to clients, is we want to make sure you're living your best life now while securing your goals, not focus on one or the other. Because that balancing act is what I call the artwork of financial planning.
Yeah.
So,
and I think we do a really good job of, like you said, any advisor model, there's one conflict one way or the other. I think we have the least.
Anything in life has some conflicts. Yeah.
I think we have the least amount possible. But I think we do a really good job of like, we're making decisions in the best interest of the client, even if it means there's less money for us to manage. And we use that as like the decision-making framework at all times, which in the short term, you may get an opportunity where you could have more under management, but like long term, if you're just doing what's in the best interest of the client, having an impact, they're gonna know that, and they're gonna like refer you to their friends and like talk very highly of you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think we do a good job of just always doing what's best for them without worrying about the AUM conflict.
No question. Okay, so meeting's over. You go back to the office, work with the team. Now it's time to dissect.
Yeah.
Start coming up with a plan, recommendations, etc. So what are we looking at here?
So for him, the first thing would be like reverse budgeting. And
so let's break this short-term, mid-term, long-term risk management, estate planning. So basically go through like those 5 categories to start.
Okay.
So short-term, you mentioned
mid,
reverse budgeting.
Long,
completely agree.
Estate risk management. Okay. So this basically like you have to get that. That's like the fundamentals we have to get in place and kind of set the barriers, and then that's going to set the rest of this up for success. So reverse budgeting, if he has 30 a month coming in, I think fixed expenses are like 12, 5 is getting saved already, that's 17. We'll definitely want to increase that.
Minimum to 8. So 20 needs to go in that fixed account.
So that's 20, and then that leaves 10 that can just be spent on whatever. And so once
separate account that pays off the credit card essentially.
Yeah. And once we get that 20 set up and calibrated, then all you have to watch is that 10,000 a month.
So just as a real quick, we have tons of resources we've created in reverse budgeting, but if you're a new, listener here, there's one way to budget, which is tracking every expense. If you're a high income earner, that's the wrong way to spend your time. The other way is just to set the system up front and make it a system, an accountability system. That's impossible. So here we're talking about direct depositing your account into 2 accounts. One's a fixed account. You never adjust it. You never touch it. The job description, it goes in there, and the money is getting allocated to fixed expenses that you can't change, such as a mortgage, utilities, car payments. And then also that's where in this example, your fidelity drafts are going to fund like 529s, taxable accounts, et cetera. And then where most people get tripped up is they leave it all in one account, and then they start swiping.
No
They're
clue where it's going.
Well, no clue where it's going. But if you set that temperature by setting a separate account for those swipes, in this case, it'd be 10,000. That 10,000 job description, but anytime you swipe, including, basically as a credit card, so gas stations, to Amazon purchases, to dining out, to traveling, et cetera. And then once the money runs out, you run out. But it's also meant to be spent. So psychologically, you can give yourself permission to spend and know that your plan's on track. So it's the most highly effective system that's proven, because clients have implemented, have completely, gone from being in credit card debt behind to now having, top 1% net worths in the matter of like 5 years.
Yeah,
so
totally. I just literally thought of this right now. It's almost like if you were to draw a pyramid, and I'm going to use an example of like nutrition, fitness, health. Like the bottom of the pyramid, which is like the fundamentals, would be like your diet, your sleep, and then the top would be like calibrating like the type of exercise and the type of workout. But like if you're not doing the bottom part, like you could have the best workout plan in the world, but if you eat like
a slob
and you don't sleep, you don't hydrate, you drink all the time, like it's
actually gonna hurt yourself.
Yeah, it's not gonna matter.
Yeah.
Same thing with finances. If we have like all of these crazy tax and estate strategies, but like the fundamentals of like the basic budgeting and spending and that stuff's not set up, which would be like the bottom of the pyramid, then that will never work. So this is like the first thing we want to always do.
No question. Yeah. Okay, so that's short term, and it sounds like they're already in their forever house. So any other cleanup, short term, credit cards, banking, anything like that?
No.
Pretty solid.
He has a little bit of too much in cash because he was holding it to these house projects. That's all done. So basically settle on what amount stays in a savings account.
How much should they keep in cash?
How much should they?
Yeah.
So 3 to 6 months expenses is what we say, but it's also some sort of like comfort level. So he told me he was comfortable with 50 grand. Probably should have a little bit more.
Okay.
He has like 250 right now. So
okay. So we'll say 50 to 100 we want to keep in safe cash reserves, 3 to 6 months of expenses. And typically, so that would be like half a savings account immediately accessible, and half we would like allocate to like a 1 or 2 year treasury note or a high yield money market. Right now you can get 5%. So
yeah.
And basically that's that 3 to 6 months. Typically it ends up being like half of that ends up getting spent because unexpected. Oh no, we want new furniture. Unexpected. Oh no, we need this. Another half is just like literally emergencies. So anything short term meant that we're going to spend or that we aren't planning on should be in cash.
Yeah.
So we'll say that's 100. And so Okay, I think that covers well the short term. So midterm, you know,
College.
they've got a kid, so that's college. So
Yeah.
what are we going to recommend for college?
So we're basically going to do an analysis. We talked through like a public school, 30,000 a year, state school, private school, like 100. We're going to meet in the middle, 50,000 a year in today's dollars. I've done this so many times, but if you were to project out inflation, everything, you probably need $500,000
Just for undergrad.
total for undergrad. Yeah.
Yeah.
He wants 250 minimum set aside. That's going to be probably $500 to $600 a month, I'm guessing.
Okay.
Right? It's probably, yeah, to save to get to that in 18 years.
Yep. So half that in the 529 typically, and half of that in the brokerage account, right? So we could still get the $500,000, but if half of it's in the brokerage account, then it's
Yeah.
flexible. It doesn't have to be used for college. If the market's down during college, you can take a loan out and wait for it to come back and then pay it off. So basically marrying tax efficiency with flexibility.
Yeah. So that's midterm, and then from here on out, it's just retirement, tax, estate, risk management.
So how does he, so let's tie up long term real quick. So how does he define retirement? Does he, assuming he transitions to this, like his self-employed job, is he in the mindset like, as soon as I can retire, I'm going to retire? Or, no, I just want to be in the position to be financially secure. I'm going to work, but it's because I want to, not because I have to. What's his mindset?
Yeah. So I always love to hear people's just like story of how they got to where they are. And like
Yeah.
a lot of people that have these beliefs didn't come from much. Like they've like built this like on their own, like they didn't come from a family with money, and that's kind of his, like he's just accustomed to the last like 10 years of just like hustling and grinding and working from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. And so people like that, like they have this like, I have it personally, like this underlying sense of like insecurity
Yeah.
of like, this could come crumbling down at any point.
Yeah.
And so it's like they probably will, they have that, they're so hardwired into that now that they're probably like never going to stop working. This is what he told me.
Yeah.
Never going to completely stop working. So yeah, at 60, I'd like to, you know, maybe get to the point where I wouldn't have to. He's like, but reality is like, I love working. I'm going to work on some capacity. I actually asked him the time exercise we do. And I said, like, if you're financially independent, you had $20 million in your bank account and you couldn't work doing what you're doing now, what would you do? And he like literally looked at me and he's like, I have no idea. He's like, do people like know the answer to this? I was like, no, nobody knows the answer to
That's
this.
such a good reframing though, because most people are like, I want to retire in 10 years, but then what? And they've never thought about the then what's. When you're retiring away from something,
Yeah.
you're going to go from miserable to more miserable.
Yeah.
But if you can calibrate and figure out the why behind it and then live a balanced life, because then there's regret on both sides. There's regret of like, I'm stressed now. There's regret later because I haven't planned. But that's such a powerful reframing, is to have the why. And then the discipline, the motivation to actually follow through will be there if the why is there.
Yeah.
So
basically for him, it's like, let's get all the tax efficient long-term savings vehicles maxed out. Let's set the track for 60 to show you what that would look like. And then we can calibrate from there.
okay, so if we try to get financial independence at 60, he's what, 40 right now?
42.
Okay, so he's got 18 years of like max savings. What do you think? And so, let's just do a quick math. So if he's spending 10 a month on a credit card with a kid, some people say 80% of your take home minus expenses. So if his mortgage and taxes are paid off, we could probably make the case if he's bringing home 30.
20 a month.
If his mortgage and his savings shuts off, you could probably make the case of like, oh, we could be okay with like 12 a month. Because if I'm saving 8 of the 30, that's 22. If my mortgage is another 8, then that's 14 a month. And the kid's gone, right? So like, I'd be cool with like 10 a month. It's just not the reality, right? Your mortgage goes away, taxes and insurance stays, your savings goes away, but other lifestyle. So for this guy, we'd recommend between 15 to 20 a month. And by the time he gets to retirement, so let's just pick a number. Let's just say it's 20 a month. By the time he gets to retirement, he's going to really need closer with inflation to $500,000 a year. Mm-hmm. So by that time, Social Security will provide about 100 of that, adjusted for inflation. So he'll need 400 a year. So how big of a portfolio do we need for him to be kind of set
10 million
for life?
Yeah. 10 million.
Yeah. I would say anywhere between, I would say 8, unless he has huge legacy goals, then 10. So what's his net worth right now?
Million.
Okay.
I mean, investable million. Yeah.
So investable is $1 million. And so just right off the bat, I've got this compound calculator. Doing some math in my head right now. So he's got 216 months before 60. If we just assume a conservative 7%. So if we're telling him to save 8, he's maxing out 401ks between him and his wife. That's with matches and stuff. That's another 4. So just say it's just baseline. It's 12 a month. That's going to get him to 8.7 million.
So
perfect. But if he becomes self-employed, then we'll have the more tax efficient way to do that through like mega backdoor Roth and cash balance plan. So so now give us like the secret sauce of like the long-term plan. What accounts are you recommending and why?
So first thing we're going to do, switch 401ks to Roth. Tax-free accumulation, tax-free distribution, as long as the tax code, we have a ton of resources on this. We're not going to get super deep, but as long as the tax code allows it, fund it, basically, bottom line.
Yeah.
So do that. Still saving the same amount. Obviously, paychecks will decrease a little bit because you're paying the taxes. Roth 401k. Second thing, obviously we already talked about 529s. Second thing would be his old IRA from the old employer. Since he does have the 1099 income now, what we'll do, we'll open a solo 401k. We'll roll that IRA into the solo 401k. That clears his aggregation to now do...
Such a huge advantage in a financial plan.
Now I'll be able to do backdoor Roths, which is $14,000 a year this year. But what he can also do, he has $100,000 of 1099 income. He can also fund the full $69,000 a year into the Roth 401k. And then if that grows, so if his 1099 income now is $700 a year in the future versus $100, we can do that $69,000 plus we could do it with a cash balance pension plan, which would be like another.
His age would be another 100, 150, right?
Yeah. So those are all on the table to make everything. Those are the long-term savings to be super tax efficient.
And that diversifies the pre-tax, the cash balance. He's getting a direct at this point 37% write-off of his federal taxes, and then the Roth is setting him up in retirement to navigate tax brackets, Medicare surcharges. So he's got the balance of saving taxes now, but also being tax efficient later. Okay. And then he's going to have, so basically they're going to have backdoor Roth IRAs. He's going to have a solo 401k through a mega backdoor Roth strategy, $69 a year. His wife's going to have a 401k through her employer, Roth, plus a match, which will be pre-tax. I already said the cash balance plan. They're going to have a 529 plan for their kid. They're both going to have backdoor Roths, and then they're going to have a brokerage account, essentially. And all of this will be under one roof of, custodian like Fidelity or Charles Schwab, where they can have all visibility in one, be able to track it, stress-free. Everything will be labeled correctly, and then obviously monitoring, calibration, et cetera, and all that, the time management, obviously, if they hire us, all the coordination, quarterbacking with estate planning and CPAs, we'll get in a second, will all be taken off his plate. So we can get this thing like fully automated. The TPA, third party that he'll need for the pension plan, the 401k, we'll take that off his plate, et cetera. So he'll be able to essentially, go make the money, spend the money, and then what we're talking about will be automated behind the scenes. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything to add to that before we get into like an estate planning?
No, it's basically just, max as much of that as we can.
Okay. So estate planning, what kind of trust should we be looking at here?
First, they would need a revocable trust. That's just going to be standard, just to make sure, if something happens.
Let's just go back and forth reasons why you want a revocable trust in Pennsylvania. So what's reason number one?
Voids probate.
Huge advantage. Second is it's private. So instead of everything being a public document, if it passes to their son, is it a son or daughter? Son. It's all private. So creditors, predators, if it goes into a trust, divorce it, all that stuff, it's protected. It's safe money that's going to stay in the bloodline.
Yeah.
What's the next one?
And then they can determine what, so if they die when the kid's 10 years old, they can determine what the money's used for.
Revocable trust, and then can go into irrevocable trust for the kid, and then they can establish a trust. Typically we'd recommend, choose a corporate trustee, a low cost, like Fidelity, 30 basis points or whatever it is, and then have like a family member, like an uncle or a trusted like parent, be the trust protectors. That way that person's not in charge of like filing tax returns and keeping up with like trust laws, etc. But they can high level make the decisions for the HEM standard, health, education, maintenance support for the kid. Okay, and then I think they're good. So obviously they want durable power of attorneys, financial power of attorneys, healthcare power of attorneys. Guardian for their kid. If something happens to them, they have got the establishment of who's making decisions on their behalf if they're incapacitated. And I think they're good candidates for SLAT, spousal life access trusts, just because they keep access to the money, but then they also can start thinking about long term if they have an estate tax problem, asset protection, et cetera. They could start slowly funding those under the annual exclusion limits. As well. But that's probably something we'd introduce in year 2.
Yeah.
All this at once would be maybe a little bit too much, but
yeah, maybe not. And if his income jumps with the business stuff, then no brainer. So probably a year or 2, and it was going to be income dependent.
Yeah, right on the edge. If we're telling him, hey, you need 8 to 9 million to reach your goals, there's probably some estate planning considerations if he reaches those goals and says, guys, I still want to work for another 10 years because I love what I've created. Then yeah, at 8 or 9 million retirement, if he's spending a healthy amount, probably not necessary, but no real disadvantage to set up the SLATs if he remains married or if they have it's clearly read out in a prenup, postnup, et cetera. But if you have 2 SLATs, obviously look out for the reciprocal trust doctrine that can be exact, and you're doing kind of 50-50 funding, then you're going to be in the same spot you would be without a prenup anyways. So, okay, so risk management.
So life insurance, he needs back of the napkin, probably $5 million of term coverage.
What do we want that to cover?
Education.
$500,000, just like that.
Mortgage.
Which is what, $1 million?
600, I think.
600,
yeah.
Okay. So now we're at 1.1.
And then income replacement for the wife.
Which is huge. Because if he's making $600K after taxes, he's probably, he's probably bringing 20 of the 30 in of the 2, or 22 of the 30 in. And so if he's gone, that's gone. And so you would need about $4 million, as you said, to replicate that kind of income for the wife, at least until the kid's through school, and then to make sure her retirement's still good. Yeah. And so generally you're talking 10x minimum your income. If he's making 600, that'd be $6 million. I agree. If he's a good saver, $5 million would be adequate. Not to set the wife, like I'd never have to work again, but just to put them in a similar position as before. Now, one of the considerations would be like, what if she gets remarried? So, you could have a trust own that life insurance. So the wife has, full access based on her support, but then it obviously there's some provisions for the child to have some principal, for example, in place as well. So many considerations that can be put into place, especially like if it's a second marriage, et cetera. Those are all kind of things that, spouses will worry about is under those circumstances. So, okay. And then what about any other risk management planning we should do?
Yeah, he should have disability insurance for sure.
Okay.
So his job is very, he's running around sales, Yeah.
So if he can't work right now, he probably has like 60% of his salary covered through the work, but his 1099 is not covered. It's probably capped at like $10,000 a month and taxable. So he would go literally from making 22 a month to like down to 6 a month after taxes.
What's important though with salespeople, a lot of times they're only on base salary.
Oh, right.
So if there's a lot of it's all like commissions. So.
Yeah, so there's probably literally a gap of like if right now he's bringing home 22, if he's disabled tomorrow, he's bringing in 6.
Yeah.
And that's not inflation protected. Typically, it's not specific to his occupation. So we essentially want to get an own occupation policy that protects his ability to do, his high level skill set. And you think, oh, sales, that's it. No, he's a top 1%er almost. As a family, they are almost. It's like 770 right now of income. So he obviously has a high skill set to do what he does. Yeah. So you want to protect that skill set. Yeah. And you can do that for relatively cheap, a couple $100 a month.
Yeah.
We'll most likely protect that. Okay, perfect. And then I think long-term, they're probably candidates for like a hybrid life insurance policy, convert some of that term to a policy that builds cash value quickly, maybe in a 10-year snippet, and then also have that long-term care protection from a healthcare perspective to protect taxes and sequence of return risk from long-term and retirement. That's probably something that would be brought up a couple years into the relationship. So, okay, awesome. It sounds like an awesome opportunity, kind of bread and butter, high income, low time, high income, high stress. Yeah, lots of stuff to accomplish. It could high stakes because life happens so quickly. And if you don't set this stuff up right before you know it, you have half of what you thought you were accumulating. Now you're basically a slave to your money, where it's like, I'm working because I have to.
Yeah.
And that's the worst position to be in, especially when your disability runs out. It's like, well, what if my health declines?
Yeah.
I'm in a really bad spot. So it sounds like excellent framework of discussions. And I think this will be a no-brainer relationship for both EWA to take on and for them to hopefully be happy in their goals being on track. So
yeah.
awesome. Any closing thoughts before we?
No, I would say this is a similar, very common situation we see high income earners in their 40s. Like I said, they see retirement, but they kind of, it's more front of mind, but they also don't know if what they've been doing is like keeping them on track or off track.
Yeah,
So very
absolutely.
common situation.
One of the biggest fees after doing this for almost 15 years now, since like being interning as a advisor, having a plan like this in place just I think 10x's today, because then like a great black cloud in your mind gets just lifted. Wow, I'm on track. Stress gets lowered, and then creativity and just enjoyment of life really goes on. So it's not just about like, hey, look at all these future goals. This lifts a huge weight so they can just enjoy life today and focus more time on family and what matters, and figuring out what the next stages of what do I like to do with my time. Because this is a big commitment. I mean, maybe 2 hours a week of every week that's getting lifted off your plate of actual worry, follow through actions of handling all these financial affairs. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of, hobbies, do they like to travel? Obviously they have a young kid, so that's on a little bit of pause right now, but what do they enjoy outside of work?
Travel, golf, going to dinner hanging out with friends, family, like just, standard social stuff.
So those can be really central conversations as well. Once it's all on track, is make like designing, like, should I be at a country club for convenience? Like, how do I maximize my time as a busy professional? Should we have a nanny instead of daycare? Should we have cars we really feel safe in? Should we have all of these little like internal competitions in your financial plan can start being easily lifted once we establish the guardrails and the boundaries in place, and to really make sure that they are living their best life today. So it's not, we talked a lot about future, but that really lifts the heavy weight, and then we can really just start like, what is life by design? Are you living it? What's the next steps as your income? How do we protect lifestyle creep, but also not over accumulate money? So we look back with regret, like, wow, we could have driven nicer cars and like belonged to a country club or taken nicer vacations or flown first class. All of those things that need to be figured out are easy to do once you have those guardrails in place and the boundaries in place. So
yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Well, Jameson, thanks for joining. Everybody look forward to catching you next week. Thanks for tuning in to our podcast. Hopefully you found this helpful. Really hope this is as beneficial and impactful to as many people across the nation as possible. So hit the follow button. Make sure to rate the podcast, and please share with any friends or family members that would also find this beneficial. Thank you very much.